My 70-something-year-old mother was obsessed with TikTok, so she would always send me TikToks. I was very much heavily on Instagram. And then I got on TikTok, and there was one thing I noticed about TikTok is that there are no real filters. People are in their bed, they don't have makeup on. And I found that I'm actually more interested in what people have to say on TikTok than I am looking at the ultra edited video.
Our production team has me film everything on iPhone. Yesterday when we were filming, they said you need to turn off HDR. And they had me go into my iPhone settings and turn off a bunch of production settings that will make the video look nicer. Why? Because the social media platforms actually reward lower production content because there's this shift toward authenticity.
That takes away the spontaneity of it, because if somebody has to have very expensive equipment, they're not just waiting for you. I flip on and I say, I'm working, and then there could be someone right next to me and I say, hey, you know what? Yes, I'm here to take your photo. I can spend 30 minutes with you taking photos.
All right, what is up, and welcome back to Zen Business. Today in the house with me, I have Pamela Knight, CEO and co-founder at the Scratch app. And the Scratch app is the Uber for photography. I'm sure you don't want people to call your app the Uber of something, but it's like, it really is, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I'm so happy to have you in today. If you could just get us started by giving a quick introduction on yourself, your background, and then tell me about how you got into tech and Scratch.
Sure. So I don't have the conventional way of getting into tech, but I've spent the last almost 20 years in financial services working on Wall Street, several Wall Street firms. But the birth of Scratch was really from a passion of travel and spending time with friends and family. So although I didn't really have a background, didn't understand even how to get into the tech space, one of the things I realized is that there was a big missing factor when people are traveling or spending time with loved ones or even taking pictures of their children at a sports event. So that was the birth of Scratch, out in the south of France with a very close girlfriend who was also my co-founder. We found that the two of us were always traveling together and could not ever get the best photos unless I was taking her photo or she was taking my photo. So we couldn't get photos together. We spent a lot of time asking strangers to take photos. And as obnoxious as this may sound, we're not really the type to want to hire a professional photographer to follow us around Europe. So we were like, wouldn't it just be a great idea if we could get somebody that's really good with an iPhone or an Android to just come and take our photos and be dedicated to taking the photo versus asking a stranger to take a quick snapshot and then you don't like the photo, but you're too awkward to ask them again. And then also the selfie stick. I mean, that's just not really effective. We're efficient if you're trying to get a wide shot on a boat in the south of France. You're really maybe
with the selfie stick.
Yeah, no selfie stick. It doesn't really go with the vibe. So that was the birth of Scratch. My co-founder, she works in luxury retail sales. So we both really don't have a background in tech, but we have a passion for travel and understood the need. And I think both of us are very entrepreneurial in our own rights and what we do. So that was pretty much the high level birth of Scratch.
Yeah, I love your founding story because it starts from such an authentic place. I think anytime you hear about a really successful founder, they always have a really cool origin story that started from them wanting to fix their own challenge, right? And then they just realize that other people deal with that same challenge. If you could you just give us a quick explanation or a quick 10-second pitch of exactly what Scratch is?
So Scratch is on-demand photography. And if you have your own paparazzi, it's like having your own paparazzi in your own pocket versus having a professional photographer. So one of the things that makes Scratch extremely different and competitive is this is not just for the professional photographer that buys expensive equipment. This is for anybody that's really good with an iPhone or an Android looking to make extra Scratch, and also anyone that's looking to make their mark and have the memory. So it's on demand. You can get a photographer to take your photo within 10-15 minutes.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, so the first time I heard about this, I just was so inspired and I was like, oh my God, I want to help with this. I want to work on it somehow. And I love when inspiration and a good idea come together with execution and work ethic. And I think the timing is also really critical in your business because, for example, our production team has me film everything on iPhone. And yesterday when we were filming, they said you need to turn off HDR. And they had me go into my iPhone settings and turn off a bunch of production settings that will make the video look nicer. Why? Because the social media platforms actually reward lower production content. So when we're posting short form content, we don't even use the stuff that comes off of our SLR, like our large cameras.
Wow.
Because there's this shift toward authenticity. Okay. And so with Scratch, I think that just opens the aperture of the potential here, because shooting on iPhone, now your content is actually prone to get more reach than it would if you hired a professional photographer.
Right.
A highly edited. I mean, how often do you even see that anymore? The whole era of Instagram models is kind of over. Now it's all about, the videos that go viral are not perfectly produced. They're, in fact, a lot of them are low production. The ones we do that go viral are all low production. And we film everything on an iPhone for social media now. So I think you're really onto something here. And I just want to share one other idea here, and then I'd like to hear a little bit more from you. But my wife and I had a birthday party for our daughter this weekend.
Yeah, that's right.
And instead of hiring a professional photographer like we normally do, we hired what's called a content creator. And a content creator is basically some 25-year-old girl who created a photography business, but she shoots everything on iPhone. She takes over your Instagram the day of, she shoots all your stories, and then she uses iPhone footage to edit them together and make a reel for you. So you have like one roundup video from the event. And it's like all of the professional photos that we took in Paris and these other travels that we did, most people have never even seen those photos. I barely even looked at them. So they didn't actually get put to use. But now there's this whole wave of photography done with an iPhone, where the content actually gets used, it actually gets seen, and now gets more reach from the platforms. So with that understanding, like, how do you think the best way for you to seize that opportunity with this new market opening up? Like, how are you looking at that?
So you touched on something really important. About a year ago, my 70-something-year-old mother was obsessed with TikTok. So she would always send me TikToks. And I was very much heavily on Instagram. And then I got on TikTok, and there was one thing I noticed about TikTok is that there are no real filters. People are in their bed. They don't have makeup on. They're just taking their phone and recording content. And I found that I'm actually more interested in what people have to say on TikTok than I am looking at the ultra edited video, either with a professional photographer or, the fancy app filters. And I started talking to younger generations, and they're all on TikTok for that very reason. People are craving, to your point, authenticity and trying to get away from the unrealistic expectations that you see on social media. So one of the reasons why I think Scratch is going to be extremely successful is it is just you with your iPhone or an Android. So although I've been working in financial services and I'm not a photographer, have never taken a photography class, I'm actually pretty good taking photos. So I am the friend that's always taking the photos on vacation.
The unpaid photographer.
The unpaid photographer. Or, if I want someone to take my photo, I know how to tell them where to stand. But one of the things I love is just taking photos in the moment. And if you hire a professional photographer, it takes off that, you don't feel so authentic. You feel like it's a production. You feel like you need to stand here or have makeup.
Yeah, you got to put on an outfit.
But when you're just having someone with an iPhone, you're more likely, and I'm sure you experienced this with your daughter's birthday party, right? You just were in the moment. You didn't feel like you had to be so on. It was just having her open her presents or blow out the candle, or you all as a family, and it wasn't such a big production. And I really see people crave that. And that's one of the things I think Scratch is going to really zone in on is this is not for the content creator or the influencer or the model. This is for anyone that just wants to capture moments with their family, with their friends on vacation, and they don't want to pay an arm and a leg for, someone to come out with a camera.
Yeah, someone who's carrying 3 cameras.
Yeah. That's not really.
Strapped around.
And also, that takes away the spontaneity of it, because if somebody has to have very expensive equipment, they're not just waiting for you. So if you're, in Southern California on the Santa Monica Pier, and I just flip open and I say, I want to, work for a little bit. I'm a Scratch photographer. I flip on and I say, I'm working. And then there could be someone right next to me. And I say, hey, you know what? Yes, I'm here to take your photo. I can spend 30 minutes with you taking photos and get them delivered to you, unedited. You guys can do all the editing you want on your own end, but you're going to get really good photos and someone that's, there to seize the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, on the app, you can look at their portfolio so you can see what kind of photos it takes. So, yeah, I think whether it was intentional or lucky, like the timing and the opportunity really lined up perfectly here. And I think you've really hit the nail on the head in terms of how you're approaching this. That's why I think this is going to be so successful. This whole shift away from high production, I don't see it really shifting back toward high production, right? And like I said earlier, our highest virality videos are low production. So, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and I think being a tech founder, you probably, it was like a cold plunge, ice bath in terms of, maybe what you're expecting early on. It's really inspiring and exciting. And then you really get into the guts of it. And I know you've had some interesting challenges along the way in your journey. So what would you say your favorite problem or challenge was, and what did you take from it?
Oh, favorite and challenge. I don't know. I didn't know if those words go together. But, so the favorite, which is a favorite now, but it was painful. And so this idea started almost 7 years ago. So it doesn't take 7 years to create an app, but it takes 7 years to learn from the mistakes of trying to create an app. Again, myself, my business partner, we are not tech people. We don't know anything about an app. And we just had an idea, and that was it. And really, the name wasn't even scratched at the time. So we really just had a concept. And one of the things we thought of was if her and I just sat with this idea, would never get off the ground, right? We don't know where to start. We don't know where to go. Now, 7 years ago, there wasn't AI and so much exposure to creating an app. And so we partnered with a company in Southern California that really told us they were just going to invest in companies in its infancy. So all you needed was an idea, a hope and a prayer, and that they would take on the rest. And that turned out to be a 7-year long, painful experience that had its starts and stops. And listen, it wasn't all bad at all, but because it led us to where we are now. We learned a lot along the way. At the time, both of us were, my business partner and I, we were both working full-time jobs. She's working luxury retail. I was working financial services and asset management in New York. So we really weren't paying attention to the fact that nothing was happening. We just trusted that these people were the experts. It's going to take some time. COVID happened, so then everyone used that as an excuse for why things aren't moving forward. And then come to find out, it's just nothing was happening. I mean, nothing. When I say nothing was happening, nothing was happening. So once I finally dialed into the fact that this is not moving, it's been 7 years. We don't have a product. Like I said, it doesn't take that long to create an app. That's when we decided to reshift, to pivot, and figure out how do we take this on ourselves, take it away from this person. We basically said, okay, great. You know what you're doing. You can have it, and we'll go off of whatever you say. And then we're like, no. Now if we're going to really be serious about this, we need to pay attention to it. So we severed ties with the partner that we had in Southern California, partnered with Buildify, which is a company that does the app. We're redoing the app. We found you, so I even went as far as to myself, the non-tech person, create the website, recreate a logo. I had no idea what I was doing, but I said, this is the biggest learning experience. We need to do this ourselves. Yeah.
I think that's a necessary lesson. You can't really get around that. And the sad part is you do have to get your hands dirty and you do have to make mistakes. It's part of initiation. I've experienced as an entrepreneur. And also I'm a believer in God, and I think there are divine timings, and this concept wasn't as relevant 7 years ago. So if it had built it in the moment and launched it, it might not have taken traction.
True.
But now we've seen the shift with like TikTok and authenticity. I think that the market will just put wind in its sails. It will be a tailwind. So I really do think that learning all those lessons was worthwhile and valuable, and it actually sets you up for better success now. So I personally don't think that, I don't even really call them mistakes, right? Like one of my favorite coaches says it's either win or learn, right? There's no loss, right? You either
Exactly.
learn from it or you win, right? And so I think you've learned a ton, and we've been working with you, helping kind of like optimize the app experience and prepare for a proper launch here. And I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to do well. So how are you thinking about communicating with the photographers and inspiring them to get out there and, start, merchandising themselves and, putting their portfolios out there and getting work.
So I think the biggest challenge we're going to run into is trying to make people understand this is not necessarily for professional photographers. Interesting side story. I'm at my pool this weekend and I beat a couple that lives, they're my neighbors, and talking to them about Scratch. Oddly enough, he's starting his own side photography business strictly with his iPhone. So he said, he goes, I'm not joking. He's like, I feel like this is serendipitous because I didn't know that was a real thing. I didn't even think my photos were that great. So he opens up his portfolio and starts to show me the stuff he was taking a photo of. And they were great. It was more so, food, animals, dogs, cats, his wife, out and about. And so really trying to get people to understand that you can have a magnificent photo shoot strictly with your iPhone. Now, at some point, somebody could maybe down the line get a professional photographer, but really getting them to understand that you can make extra money with a device that you already use. You don't have to go out and have an extra expense. I think that's going to be the most important thing to get Scratch off the ground, is really getting the photographers to see the value in just using their iPhone, which I'm starting to see that's a thing. Another friend of a friend, I talked to her 6 months ago, and she said that she's a photographer, but she started noticing that she would take photos with her iPhone and then take photos with professional equipment, and the clients like the photos with the iPhone. This was true story. I mean, I am not even making, and I said, really? She said, yeah. So I was about to get rid of my equipment and just start using my iPhone, but I didn't think people really wanted a photo with an iPhone. How do you market yourself as a valuable, high quality photographer with something they have themselves?
Yeah, there's definitely an education gap, but like you've experienced and like I just experienced, there are people who are moving primarily or to iPhone first photography. And I think it's going to be easier for you for that reason. But I also think it's important that like the messaging, we really have to position it in a way where we can make it, give them permission, like it's okay to shoot on an iPhone and you can make a lot of money very quickly, very easily without a 10-pound camera around your neck.
Yes, because, we're not the first on-demand photography app. We played with this and looked at the market, and there are other apps out there, but what we found is that they're strictly for photographers and professional photographers. You can book them, but you book them out. I was really intrigued when you told me about your daughter's birthday, because I said, how is this going to work? And you all loved it, or you could have gone with anybody. You could have gone with a professional photographer, but you leaned into this. So I think there'll be a learning curve for that part. And then also, getting the consumer to understand what they're actually paying for, right? Because if you're paying for a service, you want to know you're getting the best service. And typically with a photographer, you think expensive equipment, fancy lighting is going to equate better photos. And so we need to educate both sides to say, listen, look what an iPhone or an Android can do. And these phones are getting, they're getting better. I mean, these cameras are getting,
yeah, they're like pretty much comparable.
Yes, exactly. So I think that's going to be, I don't necessarily say a challenge, but we have to get that right to make people understand on both sides. Like, what am I actually paying for? Could I just walk up to somebody down the street and say, can you take my photo really quickly? Why would I pay someone to use their iPhone?
Yeah, but I think there's a clear answer for that. There's trust and safety, right? Because just like Uber, you can review your driver. You can say this guy was creepy. This guy, was being weird with my phone or whatever else. So there's like a ledger and a history of that person now. And you can also boot people off the platform if they break the terms of service. So I think, that's why I don't pay people cash when I'm booking an Airbnb, even though it might be cheaper. I want Airbnb's coverage policy, So I think there's definitely a big value to the marketplace aspect of it because you are the curator of that.
Right.
And so I think that people are willing to pay for convenience. And so I really think that if we can get the messaging right and help them understand that I don't think that's going to be a tough adoption curve personally. I think it's more just about getting it out there, because I do think once people hear the idea, like, oh my God, this is so much more convenient. Plus, if you're booking with Scratch, if you could pay $50 for your photo shoot, if I'm booking a photographer, like on our honeymoon, we paid like $550 US for a photographer. And then we had to like orchestrate outfits and be there on time.
Right.
All this shit. It was just like,
it's such a production.
Stress. My wife was like melting down in stress by the time we actually started shooting.
Yes.
She's like, you just do it. And I was like, no, we're doing this together, you know? But that's how much production it is.
But it's the pressure. Just with that, the professional photographer, you're like, I'm paying $550. I need an outfit change. I need a makeup.
Yeah, you want to get multiple shots, different outfits. Yeah. So that's why I think like we definitely should get some PR, right? We should get you coverage from the news outlets, because that will help tell the narrative and the story. And that's also why I wanted to have you on the show, so you could tell the backstory to it, because people just need to hear about what it is, and I think it'll pique their interest. And so
I hope so.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. So one of the other things, like when I was in college, I took photography. I was actually a creative major. I did graphic design for my undergraduate. And I took photography, and I hated that class. It was all technical, like process and standard operating procedures. And like, you know, they had us like developing, 35 millimeter photos. It was very like, I was just like, this sucks, dude.
Yeah, I remember those.
But nowadays, like it's like point and shoot, and the quality is like higher. So the whole technical component has been taken out, and the whole creative component remains, like the composition of the photo. And so I think that anybody, they could be a 21-year-old Gen Z. They just know how to point and shoot decent. They know how to frame up a nice photo, not take it from up here like a boomer.
Yeah. Yeah, or too close on the face.
Yeah. Oh my God. And like cutting off the top of your head is just like, please. So yeah, I think that's why I think like that people will quickly take to it. So, what would you say, like you came from financial services, you came from Wall Street. That's kind of a dream career. Like what did you take from that you think, helped you be a more effective tech leader today?
So, technically I still work in financial services, but just not in the corporate world. But, I've had different roles in Wall Street. So I used to just do wealth management almost 20 years ago, where I had to go out and find clients. And at this point, it's like 2007. I'm, in my 20s. And I have to go and get people to give me $500,000. So you have to, which, I mean, not exactly easy, and right before the great financial crisis. So I was an entrepreneur. I had to go out and figure out, how am I going to get people to give me money? Now, at the time, I just went to my parents' network.
Great skill.
Yeah, but, I cold called. At this time, this was right before, so I'm born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, and Anheuser-Busch was being bought by InBev. So I would cold call through the executive list over at Anheuser-Busch to try to get clients to, come, because I know they were going to have rollovers, people were going to lose their jobs, so they were going to have 72 Ts and early retirements. And then from there, I transitioned into asset management, similar but different. So instead of actually going out and getting end clients money, I was working with brokers. So which to me is almost harder. So I would just sit in New York City on a desk and pick up the phone and call an advisor at Merrill Lynch and say, hi, Jonathan, this is Pamela Knight from X, Y, and Z firm. And try to sell them a mutual fund or an ETF or an SMA. And 9 times out of 10, somebody's going to hang up on you. So you, no matter how nice, it's brutal. And you did that all day long. And I had to get creative to say, how am I going to get someone to take my call? I have to capture them in literally 5 seconds, not any longer or any shorter, 5 seconds to get them to take the call, not hang up on me, and then to trust me over the phone without even knowing who I am. That was tough. And then, so that was a very entrepreneurial type of thing. So I'd wake up in the morning and kind of come up with a plan. What am I going to call on? What's happening in the market? What can I entice people with? And then I also, after that was more of a junior role. And then I took a more senior role where I actually was in front of people. So I would travel to like Lake Okoboji, Iowa. Now, but you can tell me where that is on the map. You get a gold star. And I've like never been to Iowa, don't know anyone there. I'm living in New York City, and I would fly into Lake Okoboji and get Google Maps or whatever, MapQuest, and figure it out and go up to an office and knock on their office door and try to sell them something. And then I had to, so from there, I think that was there were two things about that last role. I had to create a brand for myself because I'm not the only person going in trying to sell you a large cap growth fund, right? It was me, it was, 5 other people doing it. What made me different? What was going to be my brand? So I used to think about what my brand was going to be. Fail, you start, you stop, you see what works, you see what doesn't work. Like, how did I make myself different? If we're all selling ice cream, why is vanilla ice cream? Why are you going to buy my vanilla ice cream versus someone else's? And I really think that catapulted me into saying to myself, I know I'm wanting to go back and just really be truly an entrepreneur. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my parents have been entrepreneurs for over 40 years. My father is a cardiothoracic surgeon out in Missouri and has been in private practice, which you don't see very often anymore. He's been in private practice since 1983, and my mother runs his practice. So she is the CFO, COO, CO, everything. And my dad is the one doing the surgery, and they would get patients to come to them. So I really saw that as a kid and knew I could do it. I knew it'd be hard work. And I would always talk to my parents about wanting to be an entrepreneur. My mom would give me the upside, the downside.
Oh, really? That's good.
And I mean, she gave me a lot of the downside. So
that was intentional on her part.
It was very intentional because I always said to myself, like, I feel like I can make more money if I work for myself and nobody's telling me what to do. My mom's like, because there's no steady paycheck then. Like, you are the everything.
There is no paycheck.
There is no paycheck.
Deals.
This, like, you got to figure out how to get people to want to come see you and continuously, keep patients. I mean, my father is almost 80 and he's had patients for 40 years. So, it's probably a long-winded way of saying, like, I have an entrepreneurial family, and even though financial services seems like you're just, getting these big checks on Wall Street, and you really had to earn those because I was commission-based in all the roles that I had.
Fully commissioned?
So the initial one, when I was wealth management, was fully commissioned. So you didn't, land a client, you didn't get paid. And I was in like a training program, and that was crazy. And then the asset management roles, you got like a very small base salary, and then you got commission based on your sales. Yeah. And then later I got into management, which took me completely out of sales. I became a manager for a very large asset management firm. And that's when I realized I really do miss the entrepreneurial part, because I really was at that point kind of just working in corporate and doing my job and coming home. I used to travel so much in the other role. I mean, you have to find where to sleep. You have to find where you're going to eat. You're by yourself in a hotel, it's not glamorous. And so I missed the entrepreneurial part. So, like I said, in my other life, I do financial advisory services, so I kind of have I wear these dual hats, but they're really, I think the tech part was, I understood in financial services, everything is moving towards technology, from robo-advisors to, trying to get people to understand the value of using, a financial advisor or asset management firm when tech is really taking over. We could really see that there. So you see tech stocks booming. I have a background with just the individualized investments that made me know, like, where you need to go is tech startups, and not necessarily like the Ubers of the world, but think about like a Nvidia, right? 10 years ago, you should have been investing in Nvidia, but it was teeny tiny. So these baby startups that are what we call disruptors is what you really want to be. And I'm hoping that Scratch is going to be that disruptor in the photography space.
Yeah, I totally think it could be, because like you said, there's other photography apps, but they're photography. They're not content creator.
Right.
And that's the big distinction. It's nuance, but it's a huge difference. But I mean, isn't cold calling like the best training ever? I mean, did you not develop like the thickest possible skin?
Oh my gosh. So in hindsight, okay, I would never go back.
You would never go back.
I would never go back and do it again. But in hindsight, so I'm really good friends with a lot of the my colleagues, and we were in the cold calling days. And I think the best part about that is like you're sitting like amongst people that are your peers,
Boiler room,
and you're kind of and you're picking up the phone and like you're trying to be like, "Hi, good morning, Jonathan. This is Pamela Knight." And then the person's like, "Don't you see that's market? I'm making," and hang up on you. And then like all your friends are laughing at you, but like then they're gonna get laughed at next, you know. So it was
initiation,
and like we all were in this together. But like I said, it made me understand like how are you going to get somebody's attention, right? I mean, how do you get someone on the phone to not hang up on you?
So how did you get their attention? How did you get them to not hang up?
So what I learned was I would wake up in the morning and find out what was kind of going on in the market, right? Who knows? Like let's just say, to use it in nowadays, you would say tariffs. Everyone's freaking out about tariffs. So how do I call an advisor and make them think I have a solution or a conversation that can help them have a better conversation with their clients who are worried about tariffs? That's just an example. And so I would sit and think about that and say, okay, as soon as instead of saying, "Hi, Jonathan, this is Pamela from blah, 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 blah. How are you?" Because I would literally say it, "Hi, Jonathan, I just wanted to give you a really, really quick call. I know you're probably getting a lot of phone calls right now from your clients in regards to what's going on in the tariffs. Are you prepared to have a really good conversation with them today? Because I actually have a couple good tidbits to help you have the conversation with your client to keep them invested and not make them afraid about what's going on in the market." And that person...
It worked on me. It's my interest.
Right? You're like... Because you're telling me, right? So have a point and a purpose. Make people think you are coming up with a solution to a problem other than like a self-serving, "I'm calling you because I need you to take my phone call." So, I mean, that was, but I had to learn, I mean, trust me. I mean, I sat on that cold calling desk for like almost 4 years.
Oh my God.
So
you survived.
I survived.
You're alive.
It was, I mean, like I said, I had a lot of fun doing it. I would never do it again.
That's the most important part, is you have to be able to make it fun.
Yes.
And you have to, be okay with doors getting slammed in your face and laughing about it. I mean, the fact that you said that we would all laugh about it, and I kind of envied you in a way. I'm like, oh my God, that sounds kind of cool.
Yeah. And then we would go out after work and like all like hang out in Midtown Manhattan. And then the other thing that I think I realized, you kind of put the pieces of your life together in retrospect, but I had to do a pitch contest. So they would make you have to talk about a particular product, investment, and you'd have to get up in front of like super senior management and pitch it. Meaning like, what is it? Like the what, the why, the when, right? Like what does it do? Why do you want it? And what is it done? Right. And it kind of taught you how to get up and pitch, not just being on the phone with a quick pitch, but you're standing in front of investors and you had to pitch. And not to like toot my own horn, but I won the presentation contest. I was really young, but I won the presentation contest, and you're we'd be in another city at a big conference, and you're going up against your peers. And I thought about that recently with this, because I have to sit and get people to want to believe in this type of content creation versus photography, and really be able to pitch that to someone, being like, why do you want this? What does it do? Why do you want it? And what has it done? So I think that's really prepared me.
I mean, that was, whenever people ask me about my experience in corporate, that's what stood out to me, is when my boss put me to pitch for all the executives. That was the best training that I got. She would let me pitch, which I was super lucky. She was a VP, and she would let me go and take the spotlight, and then I would go pitch. It's obviously super nervous.
Yeah.
At the same time, you're getting grilled by like 20 executives in suits. Like, that develops a lot of strength. And before the show, we were talking about how, you don't necessarily want to go and put your put your face out there on your brand yet. But I think you're so talented in that area, you'd be doing yourself a disservice not to. So what's your thinking on not having your face on the brand?
I mean,
I know it's a hard question.
it is a hard question. I don't know. I think I was talking to my business partner, Danny King, and I said, in the vein of being authentic, is it authentic if I'm telling people, if I'm sitting here saying, Danny and I are going, this is an amazing thing to do, you should do it. Or if we have other people have a really good experience and then they talk about it themselves. And that's where her and I have been going back and forth. Like, is it better in its infancy to say, let somebody else tell you how awesome this is? Of course I think it's awesome. It's like my baby, right? I'm not going to tell you I'm going to tell you my baby is smart, my baby is pretty, and my baby is amazing.
Yeah.
But right? I don't have any kids, but if I did, but I'm saying, but how much more impactful is it if someone tells you, wow, your baby is smart, your baby is, so I don't know. I mean, I think that her and I have a story to tell. I don't know.
I think you have a very nuanced understanding of human psychology and branding, and it's always better to have somebody else toot your horn rather than you toot your own horn. But I do think that in this market, you're not going to get hurt if you don't speak up. And so I think there is a balance of it. Like, for example, I have to be on camera like every week for my company. And at some point, early on, my ego liked it, but now I don't really like it as much because it's like, in a way, it just kind of feels like I'm like whoring myself out. But at the same time, it's like, it's important to the business because I'm the one who knows the story best. I'm the one who can speak without a script. I can articulate things and I know how to pitch it, right? If I hit on a sales call, boom, it's a close because I just know it so well. So I think it's not just that, but I think that people don't trust brands. They trust people. So they want to see a name and face that they can create a personal connection with. For example, imagine I'm a young black girl and I want to start a company one day or be an entrepreneur. And it turns out I have a phone and I can be a photographer. And this girl has inspired me. So I think you are not giving yourself credit enough for your ability to inspire people. And I think that your story will connect with people. It certainly connect with me. A female founder and a black founder, like those are things that are going to cause you to face more headwinds. It's just the nature of business. It's traditionally a men's sport. And so,
well, and to be honest with you,
and you've already won in this game.
That's the main reason Danny and I really didn't want to be on Face, because we didn't know if that would be a distractor, or an attractor, right? So we're like, listen, I'm like, we think it's a great idea. We don't need everybody getting caught up in the nuances of like who the founders are, but I think it could be inspiring, but I also didn't want it to be like we didn't want it to be a distracting thing. And that's what,
interesting.
Yeah. We looked at it probably from the opposite side of that, yeah, we are two black females. And
to me, that's more inspiring because it's like you've taken on something that's hard for a white guy to pull off, and for a female to pull it off, it's that's just that much more impressive to me. I have a friend named Jessica Killings. I should introduce you to her. She's like a model and influencer here in LA, and she's also a black female founder, and she has a company. One of her investments is a company called Sugar Taco, and it's vegan tacos. And she runs it with a few of her girlfriends, and I don't think any of them are like proper Mexican. But like, they have Mexicans working there and stuff. But anyway, there was like all this press backlash because they're like, these girls aren't Mexican. Why are they making tacos?
Right.
And so when I was working with her, I was helping her with some PR stuff. And she's like, sorry, we can't like associate me with the Sugar Taco brand. Just talk about Sugar Taco. And I was like, that's so fucking stupid and also pretty like racist and unfair. But anyway, that's like a point in time and a moment. In general, she's got 2 million followers on Instagram. She's like, almost at celebrity status, I would say. And like, she's very successful and smart. And when I was helping her out with PR, it was very easy to get her press because of her story. So I'll introduce you to her. I think it'd be
that'd be greght. I mean, I would love to.
She's super cool too.
Yeah. I love cool people. Yeah. But that's really, that's where Danny and I were, we're like, yeah.
But part of me also says that like the more unique you are, the more likely you are to catch traction in social media. Like just so the way that people dress, kind of like musicians and performers wear crazy outfits on stage so they can be like recognized and remembered for something. Like some people wear like a mask, like Marshmallow.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, he lives 2 doors down from Stefan, by the way.
No, I really.
So we see him without the mask.
Without the mask?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is he ugly?
I whenever he passes, Stefan's like, that's DJ Marshmallow, because he's really friends with his security guard. But I've never really like gotten a good look. But I think he's just like a regular dude. But
yeah, he had some unique look that he pulled off.
Yeah.
So you heard my ideas on that.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. I want to rewind a little bit to, I worked with Dan Bilzerian for 2 years, and love him or hate him, you know.
I don't know.
You don't know who he is?
No.
Think of like the Kim Kardashian of men. He's like a playboy.
Oh,
like 7 followers. He's like all muscly, and he's got like 50 chicks around him in every photo.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He was like
having a good time.
Yeah, he's known for he's like the international playboy of the world. Like he's got a ton of money and he had all these exotic trips and stuff. But, and it was like the early stages of Instagram. Like he probably got big in like 2012, maybe 2015. So he's like back in that era. And you know, now he's got like 7 million followers. He's a big personality, but, he went viral in the very early stages. And because I worked with him for so long, I got to understand his psychology a lot. And he had this roundabout approach to his branding. Like he never posed for a photo. You look at any of his photos, thousands of them out there. He's never looking at the camera and smiling. It's all candid. He said, I never paid a photographer to take my photos. It was always my boys snapping a photo of me doing something cool. Surfing, at the club, bottles, cars, private jets. But it was always like, the photos of him were like carrying 2 duffel bags to the plane or like getting out of his car, like candidly. He never did any pose photography. And I was like, wow, that makes sense. I never really thought about that. And then I think about his brand and how he's like, got the quintessential cool look. Like he's very like nonchalant, just like
I gotta look at it now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll show him to you. I'll just have a phone.
Yeah.
You're gonna be like, oh my god, this guy's a tool. But he's super cool, and he's a friend of mine now and all that. But what I thought was interesting is like this dude who got super viral early on, he did it all through doing candid photography, and he never paid photographers. He never had like the full production setup. And it was always, I mean, there would be somebody with a nice camera, but they would just be like capturing it all candid. So I thought that was interesting because what worked then is now becoming more popular now because people are learning that a more natural, candid approach to your personal brand. Not only is it more interesting, I think it's more trusting, you know?
Yes.
And so
that's interesting. Yeah. I don't know who that is, but that is, yeah, that's interesting that he could blow up like that so long ago with just...
He was the only one doing it.
So there you go.
Like, he's the only one who had any audience who was doing it. And he had some firepower. There's some other big name marketers who are behind him helping, you know, getting, posting the right captions and stuff like that. But that's another thing. Like, his captions were like 3 words, 4 words. No emojis. It was all very nonchalant. And remember back in the day, everyone used to put so much effort into their captions. They'd write like long form captions and all this shit. And this dude did it completely effortlessly. It was like a lighter touch had a bigger impact.
Yes. See, I don't know if you know this, but I didn't get on Instagram until 2017.
Aha, that explains it. Just that whole era.
I did. I didn't get on it. I was off Facebook. I wasn't on any social media. And the reason I wasn't on Facebook is because Facebook started getting too like weird for me. And then I started seeing Instagram and I'm like, I don't want to see people's photos of their food, you know? And, I got on Instagram, right? And I was like, I got on it because my, really good friend of mine who was my personal trainer in New York, she would, film me working out. And I mean, when I tell you this was like the lowest quality ever. And so, her name is LaToya and I wouldn't say like she was a huge fitness influencer, but she just had a personal training business. So she would film my workouts and some of her other clients, but she didn't have a ton of clients at the time, just a few. And I would get messages from people saying like, oh, I saw you on Instagram. And then I would look at the video and I'm like, oh, the lighting was terrible. You know, I'm like,
You posted that on me.
Yeah. And I'm like, and I wasn't like, you know, I wasn't doing anything exciting. And eventually she would film and film and film and film. And then she started using that almost like to market herself. So I said, let me get on Instagram and like see, because I started getting kind of curious about the whole thing. So I really just got on Instagram 2017, but I wasn't really heavily on it. My page has been private because of the corporate finance life. Yeah. But it's kind of goes back to what you're saying. Like, this was a while ago. She was just building a brand off of not even her.
Off you.
Yeah, I mean, well, just, and she had some other really, you know, amazing women clients but it wasn't fancy. She would just take a video really quickly, and it wasn't any bells and whistles. People weren't like this amazing athlete. It was just, and sometimes you'd be struggling to do a push-up.
But it's so relatable.
Right.
If you're a girl and you struggle to do push-ups and you see a low production video of a girl actually pulling it off and like muscling through, that's inspiring.
Yes, and she was onto something. So I just kind of made me think about that because, yeah, I wasn't on Instagram until 2017. So I think when I got on, it was already like a lot of fancy.
Already on the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have one more area I want to dive into. So how do you view, from a product strategy perspective, how do you view video as part of the product strategy with Scratch?
I think that is going to be very important from a more of a content creator's perspective. And actually, I have a lot of girlfriends who have children who are really athletic. So they're in like sports. And one of the things they've said is, if I'm at my son's swim meet, I want to be dialed into him swimming. But if he wins, I want to see him.
I want that on film.
I want that on film, but I can't really do both without paying attention.
Right.
And, because I'm thinking about a girlfriend in particular. I mean, her son is amazing at sports, soccer, and most of the time, sometimes she can't film it because she's like, I'm actually, her and her husband are paying attention, and he's so phenomenal that he does something really quickly and it's gone. And she's missed it, or, you know, unless she's going to sit on her phone for 2 hours. So I think the video component is going to be very important. And also, I don't know about you, but I will have somebody at least twice a month say, I'm headed to New York. I'm looking for a videographer. Does anybody have any suggestions? And I don't know what they're filming, but, that's going to be important. What we need to ensure is really the capability of the app to, I guess the app is really not, because we're kind of toying with, I think you know this, we're trying to decide if we should have the photos upload into the app, or you just like send it to the person, you airdrop it. And I think that will determine if we really get going with that first, because that's going to take an extra layer of
data storage and transfer. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the kind of thing you learn when you get into tech. Like, oh, if I want to save the videos on my server, then I'm going to have a ton of storage to all these photographers who are going to be sending videos to my server. Or if you leave it on the device, then there's privacy security issues. So
yes,
really big question.
But that is something I know even in the very beginning, really, we need video, because if you are somebody that's truly a content creator, or like Latoya, who is, you know, filming my workouts and her clients' workouts, you need that. I'll give you another example. I picked up Muay Thai boxing about 2.5 months ago. Now I'm not that great. Okay.
He's done right now.
I'm not that great. But my boxing coach, it's usually just he and I in the gym. Nobody else there. And I'm like super competitive with myself. And I looked at him about 3 weeks ago, like, am I doing a good job or not? Cause I can't tell, like, we're just in here. I'm trying to learn. And he's like, no, you're getting better. I said, well, how do I know that? And he's like, oh yeah, we need to film it, but there's nobody in the gym but he and I, right? Nobody. So he said, okay, let's do this. This is literally like 2 weeks.
That's what my dance instructor did too. She had us film every day so we could actually.
So you can actually evaluate
foot movements.
And I told him, I said, you know, with this, it's like, you know, you're doing elbow and knee and kicks. And I'm like, I have no idea if I'm just sitting here looking super silly. But because it's just he and I in the gym.
Yeah, he's there in with you.
He's like holding a pad, so he can't do anything. So he just within the past 2 weeks, he said, I'll put up a tripod and we'll film, you know. But what happens is we start looking at the film, like, I mean, we're moving around. So at some point I'm completely out of frame. Yeah, and so I missed
photographer.
Right. And so, said to me, he's like, I'm going to have a somebody that I know come in, a client that has a camera, and maybe he'll just kind of do us a solid, right? But I'm like, this would be so ideal for Scratch. And I've talked to him about it, and he's like, yeah, because I'm like, listen, I'm there for an hour. I could just book somebody to come in and do some film.
And you can also book them every week, every Thursday at 7 p.m.
Yes.
Or whenever your class
Yes,
is.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's recurring revenue now. Yeah, that's why I think this model is so brilliant, because if you have swim meets or whatever sports events, you're always going to want your photographer there to catch the moment so you can be present. I think there's a whole other narrative here around like mindfulness and presence, because a lot of us don't want to be on our phones, but like we can achieve so much on them these days.
Right.